Hi, my name is Jason Morgan. I'm a wildlife artist and welcome into my studio and to my new video, this leopard universe surreal concept art that I'm going to show you all the techniques and progress. Now, it's very different than what I normally do, much more vibrant colors, but I've still tried to keep that realistic look to it. So, you know, I've detailed the leopard, I've put all the spots in and all that type of thing as well. Now, as with all of my videos, I'm trying to show you the techniques and give you tips on how to achieve different effects rather than you really just trying to copy what I'm doing. Although you can do that for practice purposes, of course, no problems at all. Now, you're going to see me use lots and lots of different tools in this video. So by that I mean I'm going to be using pan pastels, pastel sticks, pastel pencils as well, but you don't need to have all those things. I like to show you all different options that will create similar effects as well, so you don't have to go out paying hundreds and hundreds of pounds to create this type of thing. But also it means that I can't really just give you a list of my supplies. You know, stopping all the time saying a certain color is not really feasible, and this is a much more advanced type of artwork than you see usually on the internet, where they perhaps say just drawing a small 6x3" tiger and calling it a beginner's lesson, and they can give you a list of perhaps just 6 pencils to do it. But what I want from this video is to show you, you know, a major piece of art that I've created for myself, some major work anyway. It's not massive in size, but it has got lots and lots of different color changes and different techniques, and hopefully you can then take from that what you need to create your own art and take your own art to the next level or perhaps a different direction. So hope you enjoy the video. Let's get started and see how I did it. So I'm using my standard pastel matte paper. It's a mid-tone grey, and I've taped that down to my board with some masking tape, nothing special there, and I've transferred my drawing over. Now for the bottom grasses and the leopard I've used black transfer paper, and around the planet I've used white transfer paper. Anything cheap like Royal Langnickel or any cheap make transfer paper seems to work just fine. So all I've done is add my reference photo, print it out onto some thinnish, you know, normal photocopy type paper, normal printer paper. I've taped that together to make it the right size, and then I've put that down over my pastel matte paper, and I've put the transfer paper underneath. Just done the black to start with, remove that black transfer paper, then put the white under just to do that planet and a few of the details on there. And that's all I've done. It doesn't require any sealing or anything at all. And now what I'm going to do is something a bit different. I'm going to use gouache, designer's gouache, which is kind of like almost like a watercolor, just a little bit of water in a small glass jar. And what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to block in the silhouette of the leopard. Now why am I doing this and not just blocking in with black pastel pencil or black pastel stick? Well, I thought about this before I was starting the drawing. Now what you don't want to do when you've got lots of vibrant colours, and all I'm going to do on the video as I'm talking over, just some plain water just to thin this paint. What you don't want to do is have lots of black pastel hanging around early on in the drawing or painting. Now you don't want that because you don't want lots of black dust to get into the vibrant areas, but I wanted to make sure that I knew where the leopard was. I wanted to be able to pretty much see the outline of the leopard, and I figured that because pastel matte paper works well with water-based media as well, so you can use things like gouache and acrylic thinly on there without it really buckling too much or anything like that at all. I figured the gouache would work best because when it dries it's matte. Now with acrylic, when that dries, it can be very silky, and I didn't know if that would repel the pastel when I put that layer on top later on. I figured it would. So the gouache won't really affect the surface. It's not a thick paint going on, it's really quite watery, but you can see it's going to give me that silhouette, and when I'm doing the pastel work around it, it's not going to move. So no doubt I may lose a bit of the outline or something like that on it, but the main part is going to be there. And also when I'm going over it later on creating the detailed silhouette, I'm not going to have to do as many layers because it's already going to be nice and dark on there. So that was my plan. I'm doing this voiceover for the video obviously after it's finished, so I know it actually worked, so you haven't got to worry about it not working. Now I assume you could also use a thick watercolor paint. Perhaps if you've got watercolors, you know, try it out. Try these things out on a spare piece of pastel matte paper. So I bought this pastel matte paper in a large sheet. It's the cheapest way to do it. And then I cut it down to size, and I deliberately then leave a bit of extra room on perhaps the right hand side as I've done here, or perhaps on the top. You may have seen it in other videos, or the bottoms, or I cut the excess bit off, and that's what I do, you know, use them for all my practice ideas. It's no good trying things out on different types and different brands of paper, because then you don't know if it's going to work. For instance, if you're using Sennelier pastel card, this gouache is not going to work whatsoever. It will not accept water-based media at all, and the surface of the pastel card by Sennelier will come off. It'll just wipe straight off all the way down to the underlying smooth paper or card that they put the texture surface on. So you know, that's where you want to try ideas out on little tiny pieces of paper. It's not a waste, because without trying it out I wouldn't have known about this gouache actually working on there. And it could be valuable for when you're doing larger, you know, perhaps portraits of leopards and tigers, and you want to get the black stripes in there so you can see where they are at all times, and they're not going to smudge and wipe away like they would if you put just dark pastel down on there. So that's why I like to try that out. And also I try out then on little pieces of paper the colors that I've actually got before I start doing my painting or drawing, because there's no point doing that. You start off, perhaps I may get all the sky done, and then by the time I come to the planet and I need more, you know, perhaps pinks, I find I haven't got them in my supplies. So make sure you do it, you know, test piece, like a little color chart as well on your paper, just to make sure you've got all those colors there. So I'm just mixing up a little bit more paint. I've just run out, and I'm going to continue to block this in. Okay, so let's set out some of these materials and show you what I'm going to be using. There's the pan pastels with a large sponge. I'm also going to be using different colours and use my Faber-Castell Creative Studio small pastel sticks. So they are a soft pastel. And I'm also going to be using some of these Rembrandts. You see a nice range of colours. So these are extruded pastels, but they are called soft pastels too. You can tell they're extruded. They've got that round, you know, that firm shape to them, but they're still quite soft. But they're not as soft as these expensive ones. So you've got like Unison and Schminke and Sennelier. These are the really soft pastels. They're very good for doing backgrounds because they are that soft, but usually really expensive, some of those brands. So I'm going to start off with these pan pastels, and I'll show you a few different techniques. I've got my reference photo printed out on some glossy paper, because when you print it out on glossy it's nice and vibrant in colour, and I need that vibrancy. Okay, so what I usually do, so you see the paper that's taped together to make it large enough, use my offcut of pastel matte paper, and this is how I use it to check the colours, what I've got and where they're going to be in there. As simple as that, but it ensures to me and gives me confidence that I'm putting pretty much the right colour down in the right place. So really is that easy, but a valuable thing to do. So just with these large sponges, just rub them across the pan a little bit, and then just push them into the surface, not too hard. I like to use a bit of a circular motion to get them nice and smooth on there, and then you can build up the layers. Don't put too much down, because you're not gonna, once you fill the tooth up of the paper with pastel matte or any pastel paper, you can't get more layers on there. Now, pastel matte paper takes more layers than virtually every other type of paper, and that's why I prefer a sanded surface paper, as you'll see me talk about in depth in lots of my other videos. So I'm just going to carry on now, put my reference out the way, and I'm going to carry on blocking in the background, as you can see, going a bit deeper, and this is going to, you know, put all the colours in the general place I want them to be. Nothing will be finished, this is just the first layers, and then I'm going to come back in with those soft pastel sticks where required, because they're going to be a bit more opaque. Pan pastels is a little bit more see-through, a little bit more transparent, and if I want it more opaque to cover this grey paper, I'll come back in, as I said, with those soft pastel sticks on top. So we're just coming across the surface, dabbing, and those circular motions again, coming down on this back end a bit. Not a lot of dust created with the pan pastels, which is great. Does seem with the soft sponge tools that I'm using, it goes really into the surface. So you can see I'm just checking that purple colour on my scrap there of pastel matte paper. Now I could have done this on white paper as well, you don't have to have the tone paper, but for a dark subject like this I toyed with the idea of going with black paper and putting the light on top, which I think would have worked, but I was a bit concerned that I wouldn't get it vibrant enough for the planet. So I didn't even try it out. I could have tried that out on the scrap as well, but I just went for it because I knew this grey would work. And I had plenty of that paper this size as well. So, you know, if you're trying something like this out, don't feel you have to go and do everything exactly the same size that I do. I have lots of people asking about the sizes that I'm using all the time, and it's not really relevant. You haven't got to, you know, do the sizes. You can use these techniques and ideas and do it starting off small. Do something really small. Don't have to start with something large that's going to take many hours to complete. So coming in with some really vibrant red in this lower section. Now it's nothing to worry about because it's easy to go over pastels to make them a bit more muted later on. It's probably harder to get it more vibrant, so it's nice to get sometimes a vibrant colour down on there because you can always, as I said, mute it down much more easily. So you can just put a little bit of purple on the top, simple as that. Or even this darker purple, and really adjust the colour quite easily. But you can see, you know, now I've slowed it down, the kind of technique, more of a dabbing motion. You don't want to rub too hard on these sanded surfaces because it will eventually ruin the surface of the soft tool. And they're called soft tools by Pan Pastels. These actual sponges are made specifically for it. But you know, you can try out other things as well. Try out other things. See how you get on with it, see what you find better. So, you know, try out makeup sponges and other sponges. So just going to block in around here as well and continue this process. But you can see now how it's giving me the basic idea of where the blues and the reds and the purples are all going to go. You can see as well how I haven't got to worry now about smudging the edge of the leopard, because it's that gouache, dries really quick, and I dried it with a hairdryer as well. Got to watch with pastel paper, it soaks the water into it, although it's not damaged at all in any way by putting the gouache on there. It takes a little while to dry, more than say a watercolor paper. So make sure that you fully dried it. You can see, as I said, that benefit now, the outline of the leopard, the silhouette is staying there perfectly, and I can go over the edge of it and we can still see at this stage where it all is. Now I'm coming in with a soft pastel stick. So you'll see the difference now in opacity more than anything. So we're using a very similar colour to the pan pastel, and you just put it on there lightly, and then you can quite easily then blend it with your finger. And all I've done there is I snapped a bit of it off of the pastel so that I can use it on its side. See, and then just lightly smooth it in, blending it with your finger. Just circular motions to get it nice and smooth. Not putting down too much because I may need to have more layers again on top and make more color adjustments. So I'm building, upon the layers. If you've seen any of my oil videos over on YouTube or you've bought them on my website, you'll see a very similar process going on. It's really, get the underdrawing in, things generally in the right place, and start to refine colors and placements on top. So you'll get a flat edge on there if you don't rotate it, and that's fine. I don't mind the flat edge because I want it to be quite subtle. I don't want any harsh lines in there. It's supposed to be kind of like a surreal cloud. You can see how it's covering that grey paper a bit more. It's that much more opaque. And sometimes you need to go on with a darker colour. Perhaps you won't have a very, very dark blue, and you may need to come in with a black or put the black underneath and then come on with the blue on top. Use those scrap pieces to try that as well. So you can see I need to darken that blue down and subdue it as well. And even though I've got lots of pastels that I built up over the 8 or 10 months I've been doing pastels, you're never going to have every colour that you see in your references, or very rarely you will. So you're going to have to make adjustments. You're going to have to layer some of the colours. Now we never, or at least I never, use pastels to mix colour as such. So I don't use a blue and a yellow together to make a green. I'd rather look in my pastels for the green that's closest, and then make slight colour adjustments with it by, taking it slightly to one direction, perhaps the more yellowy side or the more blue side. But you've got to start off with a basic colour there. And so I'm now coming in with more of a purple. You can see blending again. Same process, and it's a slowish process to build all this up nice and steadily. And I'm going to go a little bit faster so you can still see me doing it, but you'll see it all grow that bit quicker. Now you can blend with things like stumps and other things as well, makeup sponges like I've said, but the trouble with all these other tools, I find they remove pastel from the surface a bit, and the fingers just seem to move it around and smudge it better than anything else I've found so far. The downside is it can actually wear away your fingerprint just a little bit. Getting that purple in, then I can come in with some of the more vibrant colours. You can see the difference now between that left hand side that I've gone over with the sticks compared to the middle, where you can see through it a lot more. bit more darker in this area. And then quite a nice vibrant purpley red in this bottom section. And you can see when you do things like this as well, it's very different than the colours I normally use, and the sticks have got much more vibrant colours when compared to pastel pencils. So in all my set, it looked like I had some pencils that had a similar colour to this, but when I actually used them, they were nowhere near as vibrant as the stick I had in the Faber-Castell set. So that's why with pastels, if you change subjects, you know, if you're doing flowers, you may find you've got a lot more vibrant colours you've built up. If you're doing a lot of wildlife, natural wildlife, you may have a lot more browns and muted colours in your set. So over the years then, as you change subjects or do different things, just like with coloured pencils, you start adding to your supplies. I'm just putting some darks in. So on this bottom section it needs to be a little bit more muted. So lots and lots of blending and building layers at this stage. The background took, you know, most of the time of this drawing. Obviously it's the largest part of it. So you can see I'm just layering and layering on. The good thing with pastel, I can go light on dark and dark on light, but you don't want to make it too muddy. Let some of the colours show through. The beauty of pastels are all those vibrant colours that you can show, and you can show lots and lots of colours in just a little area as well. So use that to your advantage. Don't have to blend everything so far away that it becomes muddy and dirty where all those colours combine. And you may not have, you know, the exact colour as I said in your set, and sometimes just use something that's close to it, because quite possibly nobody else is going to know the colour that should be there, especially when you do something that's a bit surreal like this. Then you can make the colours up yourself, and it's more the lightness and the darkness, you know, the tonal qualities that's a bit more important. So I'm just going to continue with this layering and building technique, and notice how much more opaque it's all coming now that I've got more pastel going down. So working my way across now to the right, I'll be using the same colours, same techniques, just building across, using a bit more perhaps of one colour than another, where it changes a little bit more differently. And now I'm, as usual with my pastels, because I haven't been doing them that long, the first section I'm really finding my way and checking things out and trying things out and trying colours, and then once I know that I've got it right, I'm much more confident on the next section, and I can lay things down a lot more broadly and as I say, with more confidence. So that section normally grows quite a bit quicker. So continuing with the blending process, quite happy with it so far. You can notice that I haven't put in any of the highlights yet. Got to save that, just like with my oil paintings. We work from dark to light generally with pastels, and then I can layer the lights on top. So the lighter clouds that you'll see on the reference, or you saw at the beginning, they'll come a bit later on, and they'll be sitting on top of this surface. So starting a new day, I had to give my back a rest because I'm doing this on a level tabletop. So I'm bending over quite a bit and trying to keep my head out of the way of the camera as well. So it plays my back up a little bit. And the great thing is about pastels, you can just leave it like that and come back to it as and when you want throughout the day or the next week. No problems at all. So I'm just going to continue with this right hand side. And as you've seen with this video so far, lots and lots of blending in the background. It would be really difficult to do this in any other media. I can't imagine it in coloured pencil. It'd be really hard, would for me anyway, and even in oils that are much easier again, but I would find it nowhere near as easy as this. You can see I'm just checking my colour by the side, so I've got my reference photo there, got that bit of scrap paper on the side, checking to see if that purple is close to it because it doesn't look quite right. But sometimes the eye plays tricks on you and you've got to check it out against the reference, and if the reference is close to it, you've just got to go for it because you know it's going to work out. So as I said, lots and lots of blending. You can see I'm losing the tail a little bit with these more opaque pastels now, but that's not a problem because I'm going to retransfer that outline back over before I block it in and start to work on the leopard properly later on when this background is pretty much completed. So I want to get the background done because the leopard obviously needs to sit on top of it then, or to lay on top. So you can see some areas I need to darken, so I've gone in with black because I haven't got in my set a really dark blue. And I've got quite a, an extensive set there now, and sometimes when you look at your pastels you think it's going to be very dark. Try it out on your scrap of paper and it's not as dark as you would have hoped. And sometimes you've got to put a black down on there and put the blue on top, or vice versa, try out both ways. And then blend in with a few fingers here because it's a larger area. If I'd had a very dark blue, so that's something I'm going to look for my set when I'm at the art store or online. If I had that, I would have used obviously that dark or dark purpley blue in this area instead of the black. It would have been a bit better. So that's pretty much the first stage of the background done, what I'd say the first real layer. So I've got all the nice darks in there, the vibrant colours as well. And now what I want to do is start to introduce some more of the highlights. So, more the cloud wispy type of areas that's laying on top of this and they're more in the foreground. So it's just like doing clouds, normal white clouds, but obviously I'm using more vibrant colours. Need to use these soft sticks. This round one is a Rembrandt one. And I'm using quite a light touch, just wisping it across the surface, and then I blend with my finger, and it's all according how blended I want it, even almost to disappearing by how much I actually keep pushing with my finger, so I can blend it almost away. Sometimes you want, you know, a bit of detail in it, and then you can just perhaps tap it with your finger or even not blend it at all. So that's what's great about pastels. You've got that instant control literally at your fingertips. So I'm looking at my reference in front of me. I'm being careful not to push kind of like the edge too much into the surface. I'm rather using the pastel a little bit more on its side, so that I'm getting a finer laying down of pastel on there, more broad rather than a line. I don't really want lines on there at all. See, just coming slightly down a bit more as well. Just literally, it's almost the weight of the pastel going on the surface. Now I could have used a pencil on his side as well, because remember, pastel pencils are quite soft too, but it's quite a large area, so I figured I'd use some of these sticks. Could have used a Rembrandt, could have used a Sennelier sticks. Wouldn't have wanted to have used a Conti sticks if you've seen any of my other videos, because the Conti sticks are a very hard stick, so they would have created lines on you much more easily. So just blend in lightly now with my finger, circular motions again, and I'll do a few layers of this too. So adding in the colours with this kind of a bluey turquoise colour. A bit more blue here. I'll come in with the more turquoise colour in a little while. So you can see how I'm letting it sit on the surface. Nice light pressure. I'm going over a large area, and then I can blend into it. So you can see now I've covered a lot of that surface in various soft pastels. I quite like the look of it as it is, but I am going to blend it out. But bear in mind, you know, perhaps you want an effect like it is there. So you've seen that technique now. You wouldn't obviously have to blend it out then if this is what you wanted. But for this drawing, I am going to try and create these real vibrant clouds, space clouds. So I'm going to blend all this out. Same technique, very, very lightly. I don't want all of these edges to disappear. I want to create some detail and some texture here and there. I don't want to blend it out to nothing. Circular motions again. Sometimes I'm going up and sometimes I'm coming down. And I deliberately haven't put the planet on because I don't want to rest. I don't want to smudge that area. So it's allowing me to rest my hand on there if I need to. And I want to keep the edge of the planet quite clean as well because it's going to be a very light section. It's going to be the lightest area of the whole drawing on that top section of the planet. So I don't want to contaminate that too much. If I do, I'll just use a kneaded eraser just to lift some of the pastel off the surface. So now back in again, another layer, building ever so slowly. Because I want multiple layers, I want, you know, that depth, that feeling that you're looking into it. And you can only do that by creating these layers. And you can see I'm going much lighter now and I'm not blending things away, letting them actually stay there. I'm just, you know, taking the hard edges off more than anything. You can see as well how these layers are sitting on top. So you can see through them. You can see the other colors below. So it's not wasted. So all that work that I did, you know, the couple hours before, it's all helping to create that depth. Can't rush these things too much. So getting that new layer on. And once I've got this all covered, then I'm going to very, very lightly blend. Much lighter than before. You can see how I'm really punching this red area up. It's really adding a lot of drama. Been saving this vibrant part till now. It's really making everything really zing in that bottom section. So that's a lot of that background done now. I need to go a bit lighter on the area around the planet. And then what I think I'll do now is actually get that outline in on the planet, because it needs to be nice and bright, as I mentioned. And I think I'm having to think about it, but I think I'll freehand it and just go for it rather than try to trace that white outline again. I can just about see kind of the area where it needs to go, and I don't think it's going to be too critical anyway. So I'm using a Conti stick now because it's got that bit of hardness to it. If I used a very soft pastel, it would, you know, be much more prone to just smudging, and I'm pushing into the surface. You have to excuse my head, but I need to get over the top a bit to really judge where this is going to be. And in the end, it's going to be a lot lighter than that. I'm just smudging along the actual direction, so I'm not smudging it away, but I'm pushing it into the surface. I want to create a soft edge for now, and then I can come in with the pencils later on and you know, really boost that contrast up on it. So I'm making sure I'm not getting too much pastel in there. Don't want to fill the tooth up too much. It's getting that nice round shape. Now it comes a bit more round here. If I put this colour on top of the purple, they're both going to mix a little bit and, you know, give me the colour that I need. And then when it comes down to the bottom left hand corner, it goes much more vibrant. So I've got that softer pastel going in there, and I needed to go a little bit lighter. So this is the Faber-Castell one. So it's quite soft, but it didn't have the colour in the Conti sticks. So that blends down into there. And that looks pretty good. That've come out quite circular, I think, for a freehand attempt. And on this section then it goes a bit more purple. And then on that bottom right it'll go very, very light down by the foot of the leopard. It goes really bright down there. So just blend that in again. So the next little thing I had to work out was how am I going to get all of these stars. So what I've done, I've gone with a gouache again, just white gouache, bit of water, not too thin, and I'm just using a round brush and I'm tapping it on there. I'm going quite gingerly, quite steadily at the beginning with just some tiny little stars coming out. Don't want any large globs of paint yet. And I don't even know if you're picking it up on the screen, but they are tiny, tiny little stars coming out. Now I don't want the giant stars, you know, the big white ones on there yet, because I've got a different tool that I'm going to use for that, because it's going to give me much more control. So these are just the ones that are really distant. Now the fact they're all going to be coming out white is not a problem, because when it's dry I can then just blend with my finger and get the local colour of the pastel blended slightly over the top. So we'll just tinge the colour on there with them. And what I'm doing, I'm just going to put a little bit more water in there. Or in fact, I am going to come in with the tool. It's just a little dabbing tool. I'm trying it out by here. Now you could use a toothpick with a bit of a blunt end, or you know, things like that on there. Try out some different tools. It's just something that I found in a very, very cheap art store, and I think it cost me about £1 for 3 of these. One end is smaller and one end is larger, and all I'm doing is getting some watery paint and just dabbing it here and there. And if I hold it to the surface a bit more, it gives me more of a distinct star, as you can see, and I've got control over the placement of them. But what you've got to be careful of is that regimented mind is going to want to put these in things like straight lines and make little funny faces out of them when you're not even watching, and then as soon as you show somebody your drawing, they're going to say, oh, look at that face there, or that looks like eyes. this looks like a cat, or so be careful what you're doing, because you can't really erase these. You can just blend on the top. And the reason I'm using the gouache, once again not acrylic, is because gouache dries matte. And one thing I don't like is when you see people and they've used perhaps coloured pencils and pastel pencils together, and when you look at the finished work you can see the coloured pencil is reflecting the light and is shiny, and the pastel pencil is dark, and to me it just looks a bit odd. So if I'm doing pastels, I pretty much want everything to be non-reflective, everything to be matte, and that's the reason I'm using the gouache. So I'm just going to continue now putting these stars in the sky. So it's a fairly slow process getting the stars in, but you know, it was one of the areas that I knew I could relax with and take my time, get them in the places that I wanted them to be. Because lots of times when you're drawing and painting, you know, it can be a little bit stressful because you're trying your best not to mess things up. And I knew this technique was working, so it was just a case of relaxing and carrying on with them until I had just the right amount. Didn't want to go too crazy and put in too many. And once they are dry and they're fully dry, then I can go back in and do that little bit of blending over the top, just making some of these much more distant and some of them a lot more prominent. So you can see how I can blend them almost away, giving me that impression of depth to the sky. And now some of these stars are so bright that they actually got a lighter area around them, kind of a glow, and I'm also putting in just a couple more details as well. So on the stars that have got that glow, I'll put the lighter area around, and then I can just come back in with that white gouache and really put the white back on top of it again. All these little things like this just add to that detail and effect.